welcome back to Business AM. You are watching Metropole Television. Get to be a part of this conversation this morning by writing directly to us 20146. That's 20146, and you can actually watch us live on Facebook at Metropole TVKE. Same thing to YouTube and Twitter. Fine, good. So we are at the last part of our conversation this morning, which means that we have to take you to other trending areas in the economy. Now, our topic today is about strengthening Kenya's economic backbone. We're talking about the agricultural sector in focus. We're going to be joined by Bimal Kantaria. He is the managing director. All right, he's the MD. All right, let me just get his titles right. Good. He's the MD, Elgon Kenya Limited, and he is the co-chair, National Agriculture Summit. Now, after an intensive two-day National Agriculture Network Summit held on the 26th and 27th of February 2020 at the Safari Park Hotel, Nairobi, stakeholders came up with a 10-point 10-year Safari Park declaration to guide implementation of an action plan to reform the sector as the leading driver of Kenya's economy. But what does the declaration seek to highlight or bring out? All right, this morning, that's exactly what we're going to talk with Bimal Kantaria, the National Agriculture Summit. Let's just get directly into it, therefore. Can we get the highlight or the background of this national meeting that we held at the Safari Park Hotel?
Thank you very much indeed for inviting me this morning. We're going to talk about agriculture the next half an hour, hopefully.
Yes.
So, agriculture, as you know, is between 25 to 35% of the economy.
Yes.
It's the single largest component of Kenya's GDP. Unfortunately, for many years, it's always been regarded as what your parents do or what grandparents do in the shamba. It's never come in the forefront on the national agenda.
Yes.
And in 2017, when our President, Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, brought it as the Big Four agenda for food security and nutrition, the national agenda took it on. Said agriculture actually is the biggest part of our economy.
Yes.
How come we're not talking more about it?
Yes.
So, as private sector, it's thriving. The agriculture sector and private sector is thriving, to be honest.
Yes.
What are the four biggest exports in our country? Coffee, tea, tourism is number 3, and 4
Yes.
is floriculture and
Yes.
horticulture.
Yes.
So you can see the top 3 components of our exports are agriculture based.
Yes.
60% of our manufacturing is agro-related. It's such a core part of our economy, yet we don't talk about it as a national subject. We all think it's for our dads and moms and grandparents at home. So we've put it now bang in the center of the agenda.
Yes.
Big Four, the #1 item is food security, and that's why this ASNET has come up.
Yes. So I want you to talk to me about what led to this convention, therefore, that we came
Yes.
up with this declaration.
Yes.
Were we doing badly in some areas, and which are these areas that needed a key focus, therefore, which led to the declaration?
So as I said, after 2017,
Yes.
when the Big Four agenda came out, we noticed that there's a lot of attention being given to housing, to the other 3 areas. Manufacturing, of course, is an important part of the economy. Then last year when we went to see the president, he challenged the private sector. Because the problem with the private sector, with agriculture in particular, who do we talk to?
Yes.
Who is responsible for agriculture in the private sector? There are so many organizations. There's the coffee board, the tea sector, the horticulture sector, flower sector, seeds, livestock, fisheries. Who do we talk to as government? So the president challenged us, as in KEPSA and Chamber and Kenya Association Manufacturers, said, why don't you guys get together so that we have one person we can talk to, one organization we can talk to. So for the last about 8 months now, we're on a journey.
Yes.
So we had 3 Safari Park meetings.
Yes.
We brought all the actors together separately. We got the education and research institutions on board.
Yes.
We got the development partners like the UN SDG partnership, which is now very much agriculture based. All the BMOs, the financial institutions, and we brought everybody on to this series of meetings.
Yes.
And we challenged all of us. Who is representing agriculture in this country? Who is talking about agriculture in a united way in the private sector?
Yes.
What we didn't realize is how big this sector is. We had close to 400, 500 institutions who are doing agriculture-related stuff.
Yes.
It's huge. You can't imagine in coffee, there's about 40 institutions looking after coffee,
Yes.
private sector bodies.
Yes.
You look at fisheries or livestock or hides and skins or blue economy. There's so much stuff in agriculture.
Yes.
So just to bring meeting of minds is where we were driving for.
Pretty much.
Pretty
isn't it?
much, yeah.
Yes. So now you came up with a 10-point declaration now, that is sort of going to be the guideline to exactly how we want agriculture in this country. So just quickly, therefore, can we get to understand why it was really important for us to bring them down to 10?
It's a very good point.
Yes.
So, as I say, it's a big subject. So,
Yes.
part of the 10, and I'll read out in a minute what they are. But basically, we talked about the blue economy. So, we talked about livestock. We talked about crops.
Yes.
We talked about research institutions. We talked about development partners. We broke it down into its core components, and we're going to build around each of these 4 or 5 big components. The other 4 or 5 are talking about bringing the private sector together. Again, it's so important that we're talking in one spirit.
Yes.
So we'll come to the summit in a minute, which is really the defining moment of our efforts.
Yes.
But those essentially are the 10 points. What are we going to do with these 5 or 6 key components in agriculture overall, and how are we going to move forward over the next 3 to 10 years about it?
Yes, pretty much. Now, one of the talking points now before you actually got even to sit down at the declaration is how the government can actually get to leverage on the private sector. 2 points that came out is that pretty much the government needs to let the private sector figure itself out. Do you have the same sentiment?
So we had the opening of the summit was done by C.S. Munia.
Yes.
And one of the things one of the core parts of our ASNET is of course KEPSA. The KEPSA chairperson is Chris Wilson.
Yes.
In his opening remarks, Chris Wilson mentioned to CS, the job of government is to regulate and policy framework is not to be in business.
Yes.
So our request to government is let private sector do business and government regulates us and brings in legislation. And we're requesting government, step out of agriculture, let private sector handle agriculture. We've seen over the last 10 or 15 years, government policies sometimes are good and sometimes, unfortunately, without them realizing, are quite destructive to private sector. So we're asking government, step back a little bit. Devolution is now in play. Why don't you let private sector just do their business without, getting involved in all sorts of things like fertilizer subsidies, all these kind of things. Let us do our business. We're good at what we do. Kenyan private sector, as you know, you're running an important TV station.
Yes.
It's thriving in this country. If you look at our neighbors, the Kenyan private sector business is excellent. It's probably the strongest we have in the sector.
Yes.
Let us do what we're good at. Let government do what it's good at.
Pretty much, isn't it? Now, one of the areas that every farmer really looks at agriculture is how Kenya has been blamed for not really going into value addition. That has been a challenge. That has been the biggest shortfall, where we've been told, yes, we're good in farming, but if you look at the materials that we sort of take out, we normally take out them raw, and we never get the exact value for our labor. Do you think that was also a biggest point in the declaration, and how therefore do we go on after this 10-point declaration that you came up with?
So you are 100% on track.
Yes.
It's exactly what the 10-point plan is all about.
Yes.
How do we add value to agriculture? See, we have a history of farming in this country where it's domestic farming. It's small scale. The last couple of years, there's been a massive drive towards commercialization of farming.
Yes.
What does commercialization mean? Means you grow for your own needs, but then you sell the rest. And that's where the economy is moving towards. And that's where this big 4 agenda is coming in.
Yes.
If you look at value addition in manufacturing, you won't believe what I say by that. 60% of our manufacturers are agro-related. There's already a thriving agro-processing sector in this economy.
Yes.
Already there's value addition being done. But there is so much more to do. If you look at our tea and coffee, we're still selling in raw form. But you can see there's a big move by the tea sector, for instance, to produce our own tea bags. And there's always a drive for us to produce our, unfortunately, coffee is a little bit more complicated.
Yes.
But you look at flowers, I'll give you an example of flowers. The whole flower sector, previously we were selling cut flowers to the European market. Over the last 2 to 3 to 5 years, we now sell pre-packaged bouquets to the UK supermarkets.
Yes.
So the minute they cut on the farm in Naivasha, companies like mine, Elgin Kenya, we make the packaging now, which we never used to do before. We make beautiful packaging. We attach the flower food, which we also started making in Kenya. We prepare the whole bouquet. It's put in the box, and it's put directly into the UK or the European shelves.
Yes.
So you're adding much more value. You're employing much more people in this country. So that the real drive now over the next 2 to 3 or 5 years is how do you go into value addition, which is already happening, by the way, in quite a large scale. A lot of the farmers are now thinking, how do I commercialize my business? How do I eat what I need, but the rest I need to sell in markets and everywhere. And that's again, as county government is helping a lot there.
Pretty much, isn't it? Now, this one is a big one as well. I mean, it was celebrated when we saw actually Peter Munya there, really trying to also get around this. But now, I'm going to ask you this question though. But yes, there have been reports upon reports, there have been recommendations upon recommendations on exactly what is ailing the agriculture sector. Straight from tea, you go all the way to livestock.
Yes.
But the problem has been the implementation. Do you think that now, this declaration therefore is going to be the starting point for a turnaround, and why do you think so this morning?
I think turnaround started a few years ago. I think we're all already in the right direction.
Yes.
But there are limitations, and I don't think you can blame anybody. The weather is a serious issue in our country. I think climate change is here.
Yes.
I mean, the seasons, predictable seasons we used to have in the past, we used to have rains twice a year. I think those are all very difficult to predict now. As you can see, we're again in a confused situation. We have too much rain. Last year was no rain. So I think some factors are just beyond the control of the country.
But would you say that they are beyond the control of the country, Mr. Bimal? Because we do know that everybody's talking about how our agriculture is being basically rain-based, when in reality it's not.
No, to be honest, irrigation is a big subject now.
Yes.
Let's not talk about the government irrigation projects.
Yes.
We know the problems there. But you look at how many farms are now going to irrigation. I'll give you an example. We as a company have started manufacturing our drip pipes. There's lots of us who are now making our own drip irrigation systems.
Yes.
If you look at a company like Del Monte, which is obviously the biggest pineapple exporter in the world, more and more and more they're going to irrigation. So most of their projects, most of their fields are now drip fed.
Yes.
So there's a big move. We have got avocados which are now drip fed. The amazing example is coffee. We have a big coffee farmer, 50 acres, who put in drip irrigation using our system, doubled his yield on his coffee berries.
Yes.
So there is a definite move towards new technology in agriculture.
Yes.
Drip irrigation, new types of seeds, they're all coming. But again, as I said to you, we're on the cusp of the change. I think the green revolution in Kenya is happening.
Yes.
And it's happening in its own private sector way. I think the media hasn't picked it up yet. Although, of course, you can talk about your station, and you have on Tuesdays you have your Farmers' Days. The Nation and Standard have their own supplements in farming. So I think the word is spreading that there's new stuff happening in agriculture. We should all be very excited with what's happening.
Yes.
And we're also learning from the best. We're learning from the Israelis on new technology. We're learning from the Dutch on new technologies, which we're implementing in this country. And it's happening, by the way. If you go into some of the fields,
yes,
you'll be surprised at
on exactly the strides that farmers are actually making,
incredible
isn't it?
stuff, yeah.
Pretty much. Now, which brings me to the next conversation now for small-scale farmers in the country, which also form the bigger majority of the farmers also in our economy, do feel that they're left out. It looks like every time there's a task force report, there is a recommendation, it tends to be directed towards the big players in this sector.
Yes.
Do you think that therefore that after this declaration that the small-scale farmers in the country are part and parcel of this revolution that we're talking about this morning?
So the summit was very interesting, to be honest. We purposefully targeted small farmers.
Yes.
We said, okay, the big boys, the big players, they're well funded, they know where they're going, they have good strategies. So we tried to involve as many small farm associations as we could. As you know, we're an association built. And then we brought all the 4 PSs to come.
Yes.
So agriculture, livestock, cooperatives, and fisheries all came. And we gave them all platforms to talk about how they are addressing small farmers. We were so impressed with some of the stuff that is happening.
Yes.
And my biggest criticism to our PS is, how come you're not communicating to us what you guys are doing? Mm-hmm. You're all doing such a good job. And why are you so shy of not communicating?
Yes.
So I told them, at least get your word out with newsletters, website. Tell us what you're doing with a small farmer. Each of these ministries are doing something fabulous, really.
Yes.
Again, the problem we have is it's now devolved. We have 47 people in charge of agriculture in this country, plus central government. So some of the counties are doing a great job, whether we like it or not. Kiambu, for instance, is doing a good job in agriculture, despite leadership issues. So some of these counties are doing a great job. Mount Kenya Central, Rift Valley, some of them doing a wonderful job. Unfortunately, as sitting from Nairobi, we may not realize what's happening out there. but there's a lot of focus on agriculture. A lot of the CECs and MCAs who are related to agriculture are moving ahead. I'll talk to you a little bit later about the National Farmers Awards. I'll come to that in a minute.
Yes.
But the 4 PSs are switched on technical people. I was really impressed with these guys.
Pretty much, isn't it? Now, one of the biggest things that was launched, therefore, on the other day is the Agriculture Network.
Yes.
So can you talk to us about this Agriculture Network, therefore, and what it really intends to get into?
So what we did, as I said to you, we want to bring in an umbrella
Yes.
of all the private sector institutions, to be honest. Easier said than done. Simply because there's so many, as I said, there are 400 different institutions who are looking after agriculture.
Yeah, and do you think that because of that number, that's where the challenge therefore begins, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a challenge, to be honest.
Yes.
Because a lot of the institutions think that we're going to take them over. Are we in their space? But we're not.
Yes.
Ours is just a talking platform.
Yes.
If you have an issue, talk to government directly, talk to the relevant institutions. If you can't get headway, use our institution, use ASNET.
Yes.
ASNET is, to be honest, very, very well backed. We've got KEPSA on board, which is obviously the largest private sector body. We've got Chamber of Commerce, which is, of course, excellent at county level. Kenya Association of Manufacturers is with us. UN is with us. Some of the big banks, Equity and Cooperative, are with us. So we're now, all the big boys have got together to say, let's talk about agriculture and put it on the national agenda.
Yes.
So we're telling all these business organizations and research institutions, keep doing what you're doing. We're very happy with where you're going. We have no wish to intrude in your space. But if you think we can talk as a unified factor, is there a common platform we can talk on, use ASNET as the overall body to talk about agriculture to
Yes.
your audience.
Yes.
And that's why ASNET has been formed. It's just an umbrella body representing private sector as a voice to government.
Yes. So it's pretty much the way that we want to understand ASNET this morning. It is the direct link to the government. Like
Exactly.
this is exactly what the problems are. This is exactly what the developments are. So this is exactly what we need to do.
So let me tell you what happened in the
Yes.
in the 3 Safaricom meetings.
Yes.
We came up with a matrix of
Yes.
roughly 200 different areas that private sector feel that we improve these areas, we can move agriculture. So we have a really interesting matrix, and we broke it down to value chain. So livestock, if it's crops, then we talked about mango, we talked about avocado, we coffee and tea, and we got all the players in that room with government officials in those various departments, and he came up with a really good matrix. This is the problem, this is what private sector solution is. And we also gave the solutions and who was responsible and time frames. Then, well, luckily we have a very good CS, Munya. Munya formed a technical committee based between ASNET and Ministry of Agriculture.
Yes.
So in Ministry of Agriculture, PS Kimtai is the chair and I'm the co-chair from private sector. We meet at on the last Tuesday of each month. We've had 3 meetings so far. And the matrix is now the agenda for those meetings.
Yes.
So we take each value chain and we say to government, look, these are the problem we have in, let's say, livestock, for instance. This is the problem, this is the solution. Can we focus on it? And to give credit to Bwana Kimtai and ministry, he's very proactive.
Yes.
So we've now got a one-on-one contact with government, putting our agenda on his plate. And on his committee, we've got 13 of the other departments like PCBB, KFS, CALRO, all of them are also on that committee.
Yes.
So any issues to do with those particular departments in agriculture, we're directly linking to them. So there's no miscommunication, or there is now enough information to government to tell them what's happening on the ground. What I have noticed is government, unfortunately, sometimes, because it's such a huge sector, they sometimes misunderstand or mishear what's happening on the ground.
Yes.
We're here to give them first-hand information. This is your policy, and the impact of your policy was this. If you do this correction, we can move it forward.
Yes.
So it's a direct communication channel to government. And on our side, we have all the partners with us now. Cereal Millers Association is there. Development partners are there. All of us are now the Kenya Association of Manufacturers on that board.
Yes.
Chamber, KEPSA. We're all sitting on this 26 panel committee, and we're co-chairing it.
Isn't it?
So some he chairs it, sometimes I chair it.
Yes.
So we now have a direct link to government. It's working really interesting at the moment, I'm telling you.
Pretty much, isn't it? Now everybody listening to will be like, wow, at least now we have a roadmap on exactly what we need to do.
Exactly.
Therefore, to unlock the potential of our sector. But now, the implementation is exactly what anybody wants to hear from you this
Exactly.
morning as the co-chair now.
Yeah.
How long do you think it's going to take us, therefore, to see to the 10-point declaration
Yeah.
of the summit?
So what we did, we broke it down. We said, look, 200 items is very hard, and some of
Yes.
them are quite structural issues. So we came
Yes.
up with a rapid response initiative, RRIs. We told government we've got a 6-month condensed plan.
Yes.
if you can change this, I think we've got like 15 or 17 different points, that these are the key issues that are affecting agriculture right now. And we need to implement. We don't want to be another talking shop.
Yes.
If we're another talking shop, then we're just wasting time. And because we're all private sector, we all have businesses to run. We're not there for fun.
Yes.
So we have a rapid RRI document, which is now being put in place, and I hope at our next meeting, government will adopt it as the 15 to 16 different points that government, touch points which government needs to work on really quickly.
Yes.
To get this thing moving. Again, I'm saying to you, we have to move quicker.
Yes.
Agriculture, as you know, is struggling. We lost, I think we were, out of the economy, down 8 points in terms of the GDP.
Yes.
Part of it is to do with natural calamity like climate and drought and all that. And part to do with is private sector inefficient and government inefficiency.
Yes.
We're partners in this. We both make mistakes. So we've got to correct these mistakes as soon as possible. If you look at what's ailing the sugar industry, what's ailing some of the big sectors, a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of government policies will move the economy
We'll actually
forward.
get it moving now. Is it okay for me to ask you about a time frame? Because that's exactly what everybody is asking now.
Exactly.
I mean, we've gone through this 2-day summit, therefore,
Yes.
that really was talking about the major problems that are pertinent to the agriculture sector, themes unlocking the potential of agriculture. Therefore, we came up with a declaration. How long? What is the time frame that you wish, therefore, for us to stick to?
Correct. So ours is a 6-month plan. So
Yes.
we let's say April, by October, November, we want to, but we have a monthly meeting.
Yes.
And I think you should hold us accountable, that regularly have meetings with us.
Yes.
What is the progress? And I think we should, next time we have an interview, let's get some of these PSs here.
Isn't it?
So we
Yes.
can have a joint meeting with them and have a proper discussion on agriculture.
Yes.
If you look at PS Boga, PS Noor of cooperatives, I mean, these are good people, and Tiba of fisheries.
Yes.
If you talk to these guys, they're clever people. But make us accountable, make them accountable. We have now an RRI document in place, which we're going to get them adopted hopefully the next meeting.
Yes.
And then we move forward on the really quick things we need to move forward with.
All right, now it looks as if that we're on board, therefore, and I want to ask you about the tough agenda under affordable food. I mean, we want to make sure that, yes, agriculture is among those areas, therefore, that are well served. Do you think, therefore, that with this declaration that we're talking about here, should we actually, therefore, have this will? Everybody keeps on saying that in Kenya, you've got to talk about political will, therefore, for us to move forward with this, that we can achieve this under agriculture.
No, the political will is there. I mean, really, what I've seen in the last couple of years I've been in this sector,
Yes.
I think the will is there, but the direction isn't.
Yes.
Tell us which key points are going to affect agriculture.
Yes.
So we've come out with a document, and it's been blessed by government. They're the ones who are part of the document.
Yes.
So it's between us and them to get it right. But I think we're in the right direction. Let me be honest.
Yes.
It's not an easy one, simply because it's such a big part of our economy. If you imagine, it's close to 1/3 of our economy is agriculture. 8 million farmers we have in this country. So we have a situation where we have very sophisticated farmers at the top who are employing tens of thousands of Kenyans. If you look at some of the cereal farmers, they're huge and they're using the latest technology.
Yes.
And then we have Mama Shamba at home and Mama Shosho is doing her own little bit of farming. How do you get all of them moving in one direction?
Yes.
So we have inefficiencies in the system. Let me explain to you. A big inefficiency was how our taxation system works.
Yes.
Agrochemicals, for instance, agrochemicals is a big part of the cost structure of agriculture.
Yes.
So for the last 3 or 4 years, unfortunately, there's been a little bit of jumping around on VAT on agriculture, on chemicals. So we had at one point, there was no VAT on chemicals. Then they brought in exempt. Then last year they said 16% VAT on agriculture, which shot up the cost of agriculture. So we went to government and said, you're going the wrong way. So they listened. So in this year's budget, they brought VAT on agriculture chemical to 0.
Yes.
Excellent. So suddenly farmers is affordable now. Again, we went back on track. We told government, this government subsidy program on fertilizer is not working. You and I both know it's not working.
Yes.
You've got to shelve it. You've got to let private sector get back in the system. All of us stepped back from agriculture, from fertilizers. We couldn't compete with the government. How can you compete with government in private sector? We couldn't do it. So private sector fertilizer companies stepped back a little bit and said, we can't bring in fertilizer. We can't compete with the government. They're too cheap.
Yes.
And then the problem was fertilizer was obviously not going to the small farmers we hoped. So again, government is very sensible. They listened to us. PS Boga said, okay, let's stop the fertilizer program for now. Let's bring in another way of subsidizing farmers, which is that new e-voucher system they've come out with,
Yes.
which they're trialing right now. Again, they're listening. We should be grateful to them. That sometimes government doesn't know what the policies are and the impact it has. But the good thing with with President Kenyatta, he's a man who listens.
Yes.
If you go and talk to him and quietly and say, Messiah, this is not happening, I've seen a very proactive man and things get done.
Isn't it? All right, I can't just let you walk out of this studio this morning without asking you exactly how the COVID-19 threat now, that is a global threat, is also bound to really affect the agriculture sector right now. Are you foreseeing any effects that we're talking about? Because we're talking about propping up the sector, but at the end of that, at this time we want to prop it up, we do have the COVID-19 as a threat. How do you expect this to be affected?
So it's definitely a big impact, to be honest.
Yes.
Supply and demand. I'll give you the supply problem. The supply problem is a lot of our products come from China.
Yes.
Come China and from Europe as well. Now, our European suppliers are also buying from Chinese suppliers. So the whole system has stopped, to be honest. There's no more shipments coming out of China. We've got a problem with fertilizers right now. A lot of our fertilizers come from China. A lot of our chemicals come from China. For the last 3 to 4 weeks, we've got no shipments coming out of China. Our factories in China are saying, we've produced it, but the ships are not coming into the Chinese border. The sailors are too scared of coming into the Chinese border to pick up the goods to bring them out. So we have a problem on our plate. There's a shortage coming for sure.
Yes.
Directly from China, and if you're buying from other sources outside China, those suppliers are also buying their components from China. So they're also shut down as well. So we have to be cautious that there is going to be a shortage in the market for certain commodities.
Yes.
On the demand side, again, the problem is a lot of our customers in Europe are also slowed down their economies. Nobody's traveling, no conferences happening. So again, our demand for flowers and horticulture products has gone down a little bit.
Yes.
And the third thing, of course, is that weather hasn't been helping. It's too much rain in this market. So we have a confluence of a couple of bad issues happening. So I think the next couple of months are going to be tough for our economy, and I think we have to brace ourselves for a tough ride. And yesterday you saw what happened with U.S. Treasury. They reduced interest by 0.5%.
Yeah, they cut down the interest.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
the
serious
biggest
issue.
cut since 2008.
Yeah, it's a serious
Think
issue.
about
Emergency
it.
cut.
Yes. Now that, we hope, isn't going to come in and affect us this morning, isn't it? Thank you very much for joining us in the studio this morning. Guess what? We will wait for that monthly meeting that you're going to have, and then after that, we shall be right there with you on the phone so we can actually get to talk to you as well on the progress. Good. This morning, you can actually take him back to when he came to the studio to tell you exactly what the 10-point declaration is about, but it's just about one thing. We do know that agriculture has been forever and will be the greatest contributor of the Kenyan GDP, so it needs to tick in all the places, and that's what the declaration was actually pointing up to. Hopefully, when we call him back again, it will be the revolution taking effect as we do more of it. My name is Simba. Elijah Charles Kiagi have been with you since 6:30 a.m. It's time for me to take a break, go have some tea. I'll come back at 11, 12, and 1 for Metropole News. Good morning.